Hello, Bashar.
And good day to you.
Greetings. First thing I'm going to do is give you my list. I actually don't have 5 things on my list.
All right.
I only have 3 things.
All right.
I know that I exist.
Yes.
I know what I observe.
Yes.
I know what I feel.
Yes.
Anything else is just a detail of one of those 3.
That's 4 things.
No, I'm just speculating that last one.
It's still something you know.
I know, I'm kidding.
All right.
Okay, now to the question that I want to ask. You've mentioned the subject of time this weekend several times. And I want to revisit the question that was asked last night about the concept of frequency and the fact that it is a function of time.
Yes.
And I want to get into some more technical detail about that.
All right.
Now, I've been aware for 30-some-odd years that our experience of physical reality is a sequential focusing of our attention on a sequence of different universes, if I'm understanding correctly. Very much in the way that...
In a sense, yes.
Yeah, in the way that motion picture film is a sequence of still frames.
This is, of course, all still an analogy, but it will do as a representative one with regard to the third-dimensional space-time matrix. Yes.
Okay, and I am speaking specifically of physical reality.
Yes, I know.
And within this context, it would mean that within the idea of an infinitude of different universes and different realities and different dimensions is the idea that when we experience movement, what we are actually experiencing is instantaneous shifts from one physical reality, from one dimension to another one that is very, very close in structure.
Yes.
And going through a whole series of these, just like a series of frames in a motion picture.
Correct.
Gives the illusion of motion.
Yes.
And that motion gives the illusion of time.
Yes.
Because we do it at a very deliberate pace for the most part, especially when we have a clock that is measuring this. That the movement of the clock really establishes the standard of time.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm correct in my understanding that each of these frames of physical reality is essentially static?
Yes.
Okay. And this gets back to the change and no change idea that we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Everything is change, but there is no change.
Correct.
Okay. So each of these physical realities is static.
Yes.
And now let's bring in the idea of frequency.
Yes.
Frequency is vibrations per unit of time.
Yes.
But time is the illusion of motion, which is a shifting from one dimension to the next. And I'm wondering exactly how frequency relates to that shifting from one dimension.
The frequency that you create in your consciousness when you create the illusion of time is what determines exactly which frames fall into the slot that give you your sense of continuity. Does that make sense?
I didn't totally get it.
All right. The ideas that you create in your consciousness, the illusion of time, by creating the concept of frequency.
Yeah.
In doing so, once you have created that, it then determines which of the static sequence of parallel realities you actually experience as your continuity of motion. Because let's just say again, even though I understand there may be shortcomings in third-dimensional language to express this, let's say you choose to operate on a certain frequency within your consciousness.
Okay.
By establishing that frequency, by setting up that illusion of time and frequency, you might choose every third frame, or every second frame, or every fifth frame as your expression of change in space.
Okay.
So the frequency at which you operate determines exactly how you experience the idea of the continuity of motion.
Okay.
Which frames are represented in that sense.
Okay. So would the higher frequency be a skipping of more frames?
Yes.
Okay. But really, there's not really a skipping of frames. It's just
No, not really.
that those frames that you're quote unquote skipping just aren't part of that motion picture of your existence.
Correct.
Okay. Now let's get into the idea of frequency of non-physical beings.
Yes.
Because I understand that they also experience or express a frequency.
To some degree, yes.
Okay. But if they are not experiencing or not focused in physical reality,
Yes.
and we've been talking about frequency of progression of attention on frames in physical reality,
Yes.
there
are frames of non-physical reality too.
okay. So
They are just of a different quality.
different quality. What would distinguish the quality that they experience from the quality we experience?
It would be similar to the analogy, perhaps, of having double exposures in each frame. So that you can actually focus on one thing or another in any frame. It's not quite so structured, not quite so limited.
Okay, let me bring into this discussion another technological analogy.
Yes.
Our motion picture frame is, our motion picture film is a series of frames connected together in a sequence, and you can actually cut these.
Yes.
But we have now non-linear editing,
Yes.
an electronic thing, where you can put the frames together in any way you want.
Yes.
And almost set it to go random, and it'll pick frames.
Yes, and this is also a quality of the frames in non-physical reality.
Okay, this is what I'm thinking. What you're describing sounds to me like the non-linear editing
Yes.
approach.
So you could say physical reality is more linear based and non-physical reality is more non-linear based, even though they're both using frames.
Okay, so then getting back to the concept of frequency,
Yes.
both physicals and non-physicals experience or express the idea of frequency.
Yes.
The non-physicals at the higher frequency,
Yes.
I'm getting the idea that means that they are, does it mean that they are experiencing the frames of reality at a higher rate?
It doesn't always mean that, although they can.
Okay.
What it really is more like is the concept of high definition that now exists in your reality. There's more information per frame that they can access.
Okay, and I'm getting that they can probably look at a lot of different frames at the same time.
Yes.
Okay.
Which constitutes the idea of double exposed frames or multiply exposed frames.
Yeah.
From their point of view.
Okay. I was thinking more like a bank of television sets, but I see how
Any analogy will work.
Okay,
yes.
I gotcha. Even then, it still implies that there's some kind of the fact that there's a sequentialness to it
Yes.
implies that there's kind of a fundamental idea of time that doesn't necessarily, or rather,
Yes, I know where you're going.
is not rigid for the non-physicals, but
Yes.
more rigid for the physicals.
Yes. Remember that. anything aside from the one must experience some degree of what you're talking about, or it wouldn't be represented as different from the one.
Thank you. That totally clarifies that whole thing.
It's just a matter of degree.
Yeah, okay. And in physical reality, at least in our physical reality at this point in time,
Yes.
our time is highly structured
Yes.
and very standardized, except for people who are wafting out of it
Yes.
and back into it and that kind of
That's what the idea of the increase of your frequency is all about, is you're starting to exist in that quasi-planar reality that is shifting dimensionalities and gives you more access to more information per frame.
Okay. Now, relating this to your experience in your reality,
Yes.
I understand that you move around. You may walk from your control chair to the doorway of your spacecraft, so you are experiencing time also.
To some degree, yes. Although we have more facility with allowing it to be more flexible. Yes.
I understand, but if you are actually walking from your chair to the door,
Yes.
that is an experience of time.
Yes.
And although in the next instant you may be down on the surface of your planet,
Yes.
and then back up
Yes.
2 instants later,
Yes.
there is the sense of time in that there's actual movement and you can observe movement.
Yes.
People walking around on your planet.
We understand it enough to be able to relate to your sense of time, yes.
Okay.
And it is a realm that we ourselves have, at least to some degree, also come up through. We were, in that sense, more structured in the beginning of our evolution than we are now.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever as structured or at least standardized in your experience of time as we are?
No.
Okay.
We were created to be less standardized to begin with.
Gotcha. Okay. I believe that answers my question in its entirety.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Jill, I know what I wanted to ask you. Bashar, what's this I understand about your birthday on 11/11, November 11th?
The idea of our time frame overlaps your time frame so that there is a corresponding date that represents my birthday, as best as can be translated into your calendar. It's not that we have the same kind of calendar, but we are simply saying that the idea of our reality as it overlaps with yours will create a coincidental date that is represented by the date 11/11.
I find that very interesting because my wife and I decided very strongly to get married on 11/11.
Yes.
And we're having our first anniversary in a couple of days on 11/11.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
For us, the idea represents something similar to the word in our ancient language, Eli,
Ely.
which is, in that sense, a reflective mirror.
Ely.
Yes, Eli,
Ely.
the reflection.
If you say that backwards, it's Ely.
Yes.
Interesting.
And so is 11/11.
Very interesting. I was at the gym, say about 6 months ago, and I was listening to on my iPod to one of your talks, and
iPod. All right.
iPod, one of our recording devices,
Yes.
playing back. If you guys haven't heard about it up there, then I mean it's all over the place over here.
Wow. You
iPhones?
see, we have Wii pods.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. That's good. Ooh, I like that a lot. Wii pods. So your pods are like really small? Is that what, I'm sorry. Anyway. Okay, what I wanted to ask here. I'm sorry. Too much sake at lunch. what I wanted to ask was,
Yes.
so I was working out at the gym, and all of a sudden I heard you say on the talk that you have interacted with us physically,
Yes.
in some cases, and then we've forgotten.
Yes.
I found myself laughing.
Oh, right.
I
Why so?
instantaneously went into laughter.
Yes.
And I don't know why. And I wanted to ask you, did you and I actually meet at that instant when I heard that on my iPod?
Not as you understand time.
Okay, I'm talking about the physical time that we're
Yes,
we're
I understand
talking
what
about
you
right
mean.
now. So
Not as you mean time, not at that instant exactly.
I see. And because you and I have talked about this before, about us having met several
Yes.
times in the past.
Yes.
And me not having any,
Yes.
not even a sense of time loss, which I hear
No.
is common.
No, you will have no sense of time loss in this. The
Yeah.
meetings take place in a time-suspended arena.
Ah, okay. Have you ever shown up at any one of these gatherings to date?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
Whatever temperature you want.
Several years ago, I was actually talking with April, and she mentioned that you actually initially talked to us probably 10, 20 years ago about 3 laws, not 4 laws, and you have since discovered a 4th law.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
We understood the 4 laws, but it wasn't ready to be applied to our conversations.
I see. So you had known about it, but
Yes.
it was only appropriate to talk about the first
Yes.
3 or whatever the 3 were.
Yes. We had
I
to
see.
establish a baseline before we went into the idea of altering that.
I understand. Okay, good. Okay, that's it for me. Thank
Are
you,
you
sir.
sure?
Appreciate it. Well, I got some more, but I'll give somebody else a chance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Bashar.
And you, good day.
My question is, where does existence come from?
Itself. It doesn't come from anywhere. Your question itself does not fit in the idea that you are asking. Existence does not come from. Existence only is.
How come there's just not nothing?
There is, but even nothing is something. Nothing is different from our perspective than non-existence. Is that what you're actually referring to when you say nothing?
No, I mean, it seems like way back when somehow,
There is
somewhere,
no way back when, except within existence. You may be confused because the idea is that time is subject to existence. Existence is not subject to time. Time is a concept within existence. Existence is not a concept within time.
it seems like there had to be some start to it all.
I know it seems like that to you. And within existence, there are starts and stops. Yes. But not to existence itself.
How could it ever get created?
It didn't. It just is. Creation happens within existence. All the concepts you can possibly imagine about beginnings, creations, starts, and so forth are concepts within existence. There is no outside to existence.
Is it not possible to imagine with the human mind how
No.
the totality of existence?
No, because you cannot imagine non-existence. Try it.
I'm trying.
You can't.
I'm having a hard time.
You can't. It's not possible. Understand, again, pay attention to the definitions. Non-existence. There could be, by definition, no expression, no experience. Non-existence means no experience whatsoever. So you can't experience it, and especially then, of course, you can't express no experience. The only thing you can express the experience of is existence. There is nothing beyond it, outside of it, before it. It just is, and is not subject to the concepts of outside, beyond, and before. Those are concepts within existence.
So is existence growing and evolving itself?
In a sense, within itself, but not as itself.
I don't understand.
I know. Existence is. It is all that is already. But within itself, it can have the experience of growing and expanding and learning and becoming more and more and more infinitely. Nevertheless, even though it's having that experience within itself, it itself is unchanging. Because it simply is.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Not entirely.
I know. But that's all right.
Okay. I do have a second question.
Yes.
Just curious, what is an average day for you like? Like, what do you do all day?
Oh, let's see. Breakfast at 9.
How do you organize your days, or how do you...
Synchronistically. We don't organize, we don't plan.
What might an average day look like?
I'm getting there. First of all, I understand how you mean the term, but since we don't sleep anymore, we don't really have beginnings and endings to days anymore at all. And since we're not always on our planet anymore, we don't even necessarily go by things like sunrise and sunset anymore either. However, the idea of the so-called average day for me might be that I will be in contact with several different civilizations, establishing rapport and communications to allow for the continuation of relationships, or even the beginning of them. I will also go on exploratory missions within spaceships, sometimes my own scout craft, sometimes what you call city ships or motherships, to investigate and explore various regions of the universe or other multiverse dimensionalities. Sometimes I will participate in the expression of art. Sometimes I will participate in the expression of song if it moves me to do so. Sometimes I will interact one-on-one with various beings. Sometimes I will communicate in the way I'm communicating now to all of you, with you and others as well. These are some of the typical quote-unquote things that are representative of my passion.
That does sound exciting.
I think so. Oh, wait a minute. I know so.